to UFOnaut Australia. We've got George Simpson with us today, who's been interested in UFOs ever since he was a child. George, how did you get involved with UFOs in the first place? What prompted you to come to the interest of
they used to make us read books at school when I was a kid, and one of the books in the library was a book called UFOs, Where Do They Come From?
Oh, okay.
And I read that at school in primary school years, and I've been interested in the subject ever since.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of cases over the years, they pop up now and then.
Yeah.
And they go into the back of your mind and you remember them.
Okay. You're currently involved with the association known as, help me out here.
The Australian UFO Research Network.
And how do you pronounce it?
AUFORN.
AUFORN.
We call it AUFORN, Australian UFO Research Network.
Okay. George is the director of the Victorian branch of AUFORN.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about it.
Yeah, well, it's probably the only UFO group in Australia that's truly a national Australian UFO group. So we have directors in every state. Mm-hmm. We all report to the kind of head office, which is Robert and Diane Froller, up in Queensland, and they produce the magazine, the Ufologist magazine. Yep. They're the editors of the magazine. Yep. So that's our club newsletter.
Is that in this totally Australian magazine?
Oh, well, it will have cases from overseas, but it's put together by Australians. Okay. So it's an Australian magazine. Okay. And it's like the club newsletter for all of the groups around Australia that are AUFORN groups. Mm-hmm. But anybody can buy it in the newsagents, so it's open to everybody. You don't have to join to get the magazine. Yeah. But you can join up if you want to and come to the meetings and. Yeah.
Okay, I actually subscribe to that via the internet. So if anybody wants to get that via the internet, you just got to go to the website and you can buy it.
Well, that means you're a full member, so you can get free entry to the meetings.
So it just gets better and better all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. And you've written many articles over the year, I believe.
Over many years, yeah. Well, I've been involved with AUFORN since the year 2000, and I've written several articles a year. Sometimes I'll miss a deadline, so miss an issue, but...
And which article really stands out in your mind as being one of the better that you've written? And for what reason?
Well, I don't really think I write very good articles, actually. I try to keep it very, very light. I don't go into a whole lot of detail and stuff. I'd like to just keep it so it's entertaining and interesting. Yep. I don't like to get bogged down with a whole lot of semantics and stuff. Okay. I just like to report what's going on so people know what's happening. Yep. Probably the most interesting things we've been looking at lately would be to do with the Star Child skull, with the DNA analysis of that weird skull that's been found.
Yeah, that's Lloyd Pye's project, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm in contact with Lloyd on a weekly basis. We send each other emails, and he keeps correcting me where I go wrong. Like he tells me things like I've got the wrong idea about this or that. So
But how close are we with the Star Child now to actually proving it is alien?
Well, Lloyd's 100% convinced that it's 100% alien.
Yep.
At first, it was thought to be like a hybrid or part human, part alien skull. But it's just too weird.
And you've had contact with him recently to say that originally they thought maybe it might have been an earthling mother, but apparently that's not the case now.
Well, yeah, we see it gets into very technical details about the DNA in the bone of this skull. Mm-hmm. You can find out about the parents from the DNA, because you're made up of your parents. Of your parents' DNA. So at first they thought that the mother was human. But now they've really done a very, very close analysis of the mother's DNA, which is the mitochondrial DNA in the bone. But the mitochondrial DNA comes from the mother's side, and they've found it just to be too weird to fit in. It's even more different than a human, than even a Neanderthal man, because they've just recently done the genome on the Neanderthal man, and that's more human than this skull. Yeah. So it's very, very strange. Although there is some DNA that's similar, or some of the DNA patterns and things in there are the same as what you find in people. Mm-hmm. It's just too far different from human to be anywhere near human. Okay. And one look at the skull will tell you that. Yeah. It's more
a lot thinner, isn't it?
The skull is more than 10 standard deviations from normal. Okay. So that puts it into another species category altogether. Completely not human.
So that'll be interesting when they get to the point where they can actually 100% prove that it's not.
They've got to that point. But what Lloyd said lately was that It's like if you had 10% of a loaf of bread and you're looking at it, you can figure out what kind of a loaf of bread it was if you've got 10% of it, right? That's where they're at with it now, with their analysis. So they can see this is pretty strange, doesn't fit anything we know. In fact, from the nuclear DNA, which is where it comes from the father, that there is no known match to any creature on the planet.
Okay.
Now, there aren't any living creatures on this planet that have no DNA from their father. Any mammal that lives on this planet has DNA that came from its father.
Yeah, yeah.
The Star Child, there's no match with any DNA from this planet on this huge database.
That's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see where that story goes to, when they finally get to the point where they can prove it to everybody and they come out and tell everybody about it.
Well, it should end up in the news. Everybody will hear about it in the news.
I think once it hits mainstream, it will be a whole open slather thing. There'll be a lot of discussion on that.
Lloyd doesn't want to hurry up and sort of bring it out until they've got more than 10%.
Yep.
He doesn't want the skeptics to have any chance of knocking it over, right?
Yeah.
But he's convinced, and there's enough people that are convinced.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite good.
Just getting back to where we were talking before about writing articles and things, you also done a lot of presentation work as well in regards to UFO meetings and conferences around Australia. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that avenue?
Yeah, it's good fun. I've been asked to do talks for people like probers groups and things like that, and so you go along and give them a talk on the subject, basically to entertain them for an evening sort of thing, and that's always good fun. I've only really done one UFO conference where I was one of the speakers. That was in New South Wales. Well, one was just for a UFO group, but the other one was an actual conference, so that was held at Campbelltown about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And that was really, really good.
They've got a fairly strong group up that way, I believe.
Yeah, and look, a lot of what I talked about at that conference was the Westall case, because it's a local case here in Victoria that we knew a fair bit about and we'd been studying.
Yep.
And it hadn't had the exposure that it's had lately, because it was before the video came out. But I was able to tell them all I knew, because see, I've met a few of the witnesses personally and interviewed them and stuff. Yeah. So I was able to fill them in a bit on where we're up to with the Westall case.
So the Westall case is nowhere near finished. There's a lot more to be found and a lot more to be investigated, and the likes of George and the various other guys that are out there doing this, we applaud them all the way. Just going back to 2004, I believe you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you attended a conference in Sydney where you talked about such cases as Westall, for instance. There was the Frederick Valentich case as well, which is also widely known. There was another one I found which I hadn't really heard of before, Sue Sharples.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good case.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have never heard of this one.
Well, that's a really good case. Sue contacted us and wanted to report her sighting that had happened to her. She was driving along in her car in Warrnambool, I think it was.
Okay.
And she noticed in her rear vision mirror this saucer object flying low, just below the cloud level. And going up in the clouds, coming down and going up and coming down again. Following her car. She was coming home from shopping. She had all the grocery bags on the back seat. And she also had a bassinet there with a baby grandchild in the back. They were looking after the grandchild that day. Anyway, this object came down right over the car as she was driving along. Her husband was in the passenger seat and he didn't see anything. She was driving. Then the object shot straight up into the sky, and as it lifted up, it took the rear window of the car with it. And she was really worried at that point because the window was gone, so all the wind was blowing around in the car. And she was really concerned that one of the plastic bags might smother the baby in the back seat. So she pulled over and stopped, and she saw the window, the windscreen, sort of disappearing up into the clouds.
Is that right?
Yeah. Now,
it never came back down again.
The husband he's a scientifically trained person, and he wanted to stay and wait for the window to come down. He went up, it's got to come down. It never came down. So
that's incredible, isn't it? And was there any other witnesses to this event?
No, but there's a photograph in the paper of her sitting in the back of the car with her hand around on the her hand around the edge of the window frame, showing you there was no glass in it. She went to a windscreen place, told them the story about how this window disappeared, and they replaced the window free of charge for her. Because it was such an unusual story.
They probably never had anybody come in and say that.
The baby was okay, you know, and the husband's still waiting for the window to come down over the sky.
That's amazing as well.
You know, scientifically trained. What goes up must come down. Well, it didn't.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the other thing that I learnt recently after reading a few articles on the internet and that was that Dandenong is apparently quite a hotspot for UFOs.
The Dandenong Ranges, Dandenong Mountains, the whole of Dandenong Mountains.
The whole Dandenong Mountains,
the mountain area,
has a lot of sightings.
It's not sort of Dandenong the town, so much, although there's been a lot of sightings there.
So we're talking like maybe Mongbulk and
all the
sort of
Mount Dandenong area and Callista
and what do you
dam up there.
Why do you think that would be the case?
Not really sure. There's been a lot of theories over the years, but you can't prove any of it. Like there's a big clandestine Air Force base under the mountain or something,
But every mountain's got one.
That's right, yeah. But there's been a lot of cases from there. One of the really interesting cases we got, that we investigated was an ambulance crew were going out through up in the hills in the Dandenongs. There's a nursing home up there in the hills, and they were going there to either pick someone up or drop somebody off at a nursing home. And they saw, as they were going along Burwood Highway, they saw this big fireball. They just thought it was a meteor, a big fireball coming down. But fireballs just come down and they hit the ground. This thing leveled off.
Oh, right.
And it stopped burning like a fireball.
So it came down and then sort of went straight.
And then it just started going along. So they followed it because it was ahead of them, and they were heading towards this nursing home, and it was heading in the same direction they were.
Okay.
And when they got to the nursing home, people at the nursing home were waiting for them to come, expecting them to arrive. And they saw it in the sky as well, going along. Okay. And then it did a U-turn and went back the other way. Now, there's no known meteor that can do that. And these guys were intelligent. They were, medically trained medics in this ambulance.
But there's no video, or I guess there wouldn't be.
Well,
there for the
they were just they were out working one night, but they reported the sighting.
Yeah, like you said, they're they're people of good standing and all the rest of it. So.
Intelligent, qualified, intelligent people making interesting reports. Of stuff that aren't supposed to be. And it ain't supposed to be. Meteors can't do U-turns, and they can't level off.
And people see a lot of that sort of thing, for sure. I mean, I know I have myself. George also is the director for AFOR in Victoria, and he runs the meetings that we have quarterly, is it?
Yeah, 4 times a year.
4 times a year. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
It's the same pattern as they used to use with the other group that I was involved with before, a few 4 years ago. It's just a good idea to run them only 4 times a year, because you've got to allow for things to happen. Like you run out of cases and that. So if we have a meeting every 3 months, something would have happened hopefully in the last 3 months, or something turns up that's interesting to have at the meeting, or something to highlight at a meeting. If we had them more frequently, people could get burned out. And it's pretty much a one-man show here in Victoria with me, because I'm sort of the only person that really sort of.
And this is in the southeastern suburbs,
Yeah, we do it at. We used to have it at the Clayton RSL. And the interesting thing about that was, after doing it there for 8 years, they still didn't know who we were, because we don't meet weekly. If we meet weekly, then they'd know who we were. They'd have a better idea. Because we came every 3 months. Every time it was, oh, who are you? What are you doing? So now we meet at this restaurant in the caravan park, and it suits everybody, and it's good.
It's good. If anybody's interested in coming along, check it on the website. You'll be able to find it there on the page. It's got all the meetings around Australia. There's a phone number there. Give George a call, and we welcome everybody who wants to come along. All right, that's pretty much all we've got time for today. So we thank George for coming along. We'd love to keep chatting, but we've run out of time. So any final words there, George?
Just in the background there's the Westall Primary School, which is where the whole thing started.
That's right. We're actually filming here live today at the Westall School, and we've got the Grange over there in the distance. I don't know if you want to pan across there to get the Grange in.
Those pine trees on the horizon over there, and this is the area where it all happened. Let's just leave that.
So over there, as you can see, where those trees are in the distance, that's where we went the other week in our special that we did with Westall. And so this is where we've done the interview at the back of the school today. So, all right, that's pretty much it. Got no more for you, so we've got to run, and we hope you enjoyed the interview. We'll try and bring you many more interviews as we go on. Thanks a lot. See you later.